they come into the community, they may be motivated. The longer they're around people who are righteous and sincere, they'll begin to change. Yeah? I want to share with you this one example. In our community, there was one time a sister who came and we interviewed her and she wanted to apply for a job and she did not wear the hijab. So we went ahead and we hired her. I went ahead and hired her. So, of course, everybody is very upset at me. Super upset. How can you hire a sister who doesn't wear the hijab? The sisters are wearing the niqab in our community and now you can, how they, this is... People are very upset. So, but brothers and sisters, would you believe that hardly in 2 months she started to wear the hijab? Because she was around people, and I told all the sisters, don't ever say anything about the hijab. Don't tell her about, because don't say anything about the hijab. If she asks, then you answer the question. But she's smart, and she will know that she should wear the hijab because she sees all the other sisters wearing the hijab. The same thing, there was a brother in our community who, when he came in, he didn't have a beard. And we hired him. And again, people were upset that, how can you do this? This is so wrong. But within, I would say, 6 weeks, he began to have a beard himself. He began to have a beard. So I would say that the Muslims, even if they're not practicing, encourage them. The masjid is like a hospital. It's like a hospital. We cannot turn away any Muslim. Let's just think good of the Muslims and invite them. Our job in Islam is to invite, not to indict. It is Allah's job, it is Allah's to judge. Our job is to bring them. If we see a munkar, I'm not saying we should leave it alone. We should enjoy what is right, definitely. But with wisdom. With wisdom we should invite them to come in. So yes, but you have two more questions.
Establishing a community. When do we start, and what are the steps that we have to take in order to establish a community?
Okay. The question, sisters, is that when do we start establishing a community, and what are the steps? In terms of when do we start? Yesterday. We need to start as soon as possible, In terms of what are the steps to take, every community goes through different stages. I would say Allah knows best, and again, this is not a foolproof situation, but I would say the following, and I'm just following the example of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this case. I would say start with education. Start educating the community like we're doing here already through halaqas. Get people to understand their aqidah. What is their belief? The Islamic belief. What is it? The issue of tawheed. Tawheed al-rububiyyah, tawheed al-asma'i wal-sifat, tawheed al-uluhiyyah. The oneness of Allah in His Lordship, the oneness of Allah in His names and His attributes, the oneness of Allah in worshipping Him. Okay, these are basic issues that most Muslims don't know about. Like, take the kalima, for example. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. It has 8 conditions. Both sides, it has composed of these 2 parts, right? La ilaha illallah and Muhammadur Rasulullah. Both of them have 8 conditions that most Muslims don't know about. And that's why La ilaha illallah these days does not mean much to Muslims. They say it, but somebody like Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, they understood the ramifications of La ilaha illallah, that's why they refused to say it. But today, if you ask somebody to say La ilaha illallah, they say, okay, I'll say it, what's the big deal? I'll say it. See there, I said it. Because people don't understand what's involved, and most Muslims don't understand. So, the first thing is the aqidah. Like, when you take, for example, the tawheed, the oneness of Allah and His Lordship, right? Simple example. A lot of Muslims have begun to believe in good luck charms. You know, really. I mean, you might laugh, but really, you know, have you seen these microscopic Qur'ans that the Muslims have? They call them ta'weez. In these microscopic Qur'ans, you know, Qur'an is for what? To read, right? But people put them on their visors in the car to protect them. They use them for protection.
Does it help?
No, doesn't help. Because people are depending on that rather than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this is a function of understanding the tawheed of the lordship of Allah. When we say, for example, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, this is an expression of tawheed al-rububiyyah. That there's no action, no strength save through Allah. You know? A lot of times, like these days, what is the biggest reason for stress? Things happen unexpectedly in our lives. Right? And people stress out about those things. But if we, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed of the Lordship of Allah teaches us that Allah is the one who decrees everything. Nothing happens without Allah's decree. If we understood that, we wouldn't be stressing. You see, these are some basic functions. Tawheed of al-Asma'i wa-Sifat. For example, the believing in the oneness of Allah and His names and His attributes. When somebody like Khomeini, he says in his book, The Islamic Government, right? He says that our Imams have a position that is higher than the Prophets because they control, under their control is every atom of the universe. Now, is that in line with the Quran? Or the Sunnah? This is a description of Allah. وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. You know, to Allah belong the kingdoms of the heavens and the earth. Everything is in the control of Allah, not an Imam. And they're certainly not better than the Prophets, salawatullahi alayhim. But these are issues that we face on a daily basis that most Muslims are not aware of, you know. When it comes to the worship of Allah, again, similar, when it comes, for example, to this whole issue of bad luck, this is an issue of rububiyyah, you know, lordship. You know, have you seen in many of the buildings, you go to New York, and you'll see floor 12, and you'll see floor 14? People say in America they're not superstitious, they're very logical and scientific and rational, and right? They're not superstitious. But you never see a floor 13. You go to some of these skyscrapers in New York, you won't see a floor 13. Because 13 is supposed to be an unlucky number. Right? You know the story about Apollo 13? You know that was the Apollo that was aborted? Right? Apollo 13. You know the Saturn V rocket that went to the moon? And that was the one that they were afraid because it could not land on the moon, so it came back. And as it was coming back, they were trying to make sure it caught the gravity of the Earth. Otherwise, they were afraid that if it did not catch the gravity of the Earth, it would shoot off into space towards Mars, and they would lose these 3 astronauts. It was named Apollo 13. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that it caught the gravity of the Earth and it landed on Earth. After they landed, they brought the lead astronaut. He's a physicist. They brought him, you know, they brought all the 3 astronauts on land and they interviewed them. So the reporter asked the lead astronaut, sir, why do you think we failed? Why did this mission fail? So the astronaut, he said, I knew it. This mission was doomed from the beginning. The scientist, okay? Reporter said, why? He said, because see, look, it was Apollo 13. We left on Friday the 13th. You're not supposed to bring bad luck. We left at 1300 hours. You know, that's military time for 1 o'clock. So this was doomed from the beginning. This mission was doomed from the beginning. You see? Now this is the bad luck issue.